What's going on, everybody? Today is going to be all about creating an assistant utilizing the platform.openai.com, or the playground to create the assistant, and then also I'll show you how to create assistants in code and everything that you would need to know to get started with the API, the assistants API. Now, I'm going to make this video a two-parter because I'm going to do this in one so that it's all contained and just strictly about OpenAI assistants. And then I have another video that explains, some things that I've noticed in the OpenAI Discord. I'm relatively active over there in the developers corner, and I see discussions, including my own, around what ChatGPT is or isn't, and what large language models are or aren't, and what GPTs are, and not generative pre-trained transformers, but the new GPTs that are coming to the marketplace. The GPT store, and versus what assistants are. So I'll cover that, but not in this video. I'll probably put a link up or something. But anyways, this video is all about assistants and the assistants API. So what we'll do is I'll say we'll create an assistant in the platform, and when we do, we're just going to give it a name. This ID won't be present just yet until you save it. But we'll give it a name. We'll give it some instructions. We'll choose a model here, and we'll select whether we want to use custom functions. We'll put those in here in this JSON format. If we do, we will choose whether or not to leverage code interpreter. We'll choose whether or not to leverage retrieval, augmented generation, and then upload files, and that's it. So once we do, everything is saved, and we can test it directly within the playground or the platform here if we want, or we can now start accessing this assistant via code, and you can see here I've added that in here. So we're looking at Python right now. I have literally two files here. There's an assistant.py file and a .env. I won't show you the .env because it contains my OpenAI API key, but all that's in there is essentially this, that, right? And you would essentially go into the .env file. I'll put this up on GitHub, but you would put that into the .env file, and you'd go from there. So we're going to import OpenAI from OpenAI. We're going to use OS to have access to our file system, etc. And then we're going to load .env function here that calls in our OpenAI API key. Okay, cool. There's the use of the operating system. So we'll define a model, and we'll define an assistant ID to get started. If you wanted to create an assistant, you would be using this code here, and then you would interact with that assistant ID that I've reset there. So again, you create the assistant in code, you get the assistant ID, and then everything that follows then uses that assistant ID. However, we're using the one that we've already created. And I would, again, urge you not to just run this file over and over, or else you'll end up with, hundreds of assistants in your assistants dashboard. So we're going to create a thread. And a thread can be looked at as like a session or a message thread, if you will. That's what's going into this, is messages and or files, but primarily messages, and these messages are back and forth between the user and the assistant. Sorry, taking a drink and I'm not editing this. So the messages get put into the thread. The thread is somewhat persistent. You can obviously create new threads when you want to, when you need to. Different users using your application down the road when it goes to production would obviously be using different threads. And then there are messages stored in each. So, you can tie like a session ID to a thread, or if you're using Flask, you know, you could use like limiter sessions or whatever you wanted to use. Okay, so here is some code that's optional. If you wanted to, for instance, like when you're using ChatGPT, you see the little file attachment icon. You can upload files in your chat. Well, you can allow the same type of functionality here. File path is going to give me an undefined response there, but that file path, for instance, you would have an upload file, and then you would get the contents of that file. You would then store that here, and then add this to the assistants later down the road, right? So, and I think I have it commented out here. Yeah. So here's where I would essentially be adding that to my message, giving the assistant access to it, versus files that the assistant has access to already. Now, I will say that there's also a way to attach in the creation process of an assistant. For instance, I would put the file creation above and then attach files to this assistant via, I think it's the same, you know, as far as file IDs are concerned, same as this. So what we're going to then want to do is, and by the way, this assistant file is the ID that we're using. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to now create this message sans files, but we're going to use the thread ID. We're going to give the role of a user, and we're going to ask a question. Now, this particular assistant is the only information that it has are FAQs from boldcrow.ai, which is my website, and it's then going to run this message through the thread into the assistant using a model, right? Also using instructions. I want to say this is very cool, and there's tons of opportunity here when you're able to create instructions for a specific run that are not or weren't previously defined to your assistant. So let me say that again. I can create totally separate instructions for individual runs that, you know, is going through a thread to an assistant that weren't defined by the assistant. So for instance, over here I have instructions. You are a helpful assistant. Your name is Raven. You are conversational at all times. Over here, I'm just saying your name is Raven. You answer questions with precision based on the content within the files you have access to. This is the instruction that is going to be given to the assistant at this time. It will have essentially no recollection of these instructions or settings at the time of run, right? So it will do this. That's cool. All right, so jumping into the actual run, we're going to create a loop here and basically check the status of it frequently. You can use time for this. This is also one way of doing it. It'll essentially just process, or rather print the run status that's processing until it finally completes. And then the last step, we're going to get all of our messages. And this is how we do that. So, okay, again, this is going to go up to GitHub to where you can literally just run this, use this for whatever you would like. This is mostly using the documentation that is available from OpenAI to do this. So here we're going to print the user's message and the assistant response. And when we run this, it'll just run through and, like I said, in progress, I guess. So I said, what is Bold Crow? Bold Crow specializes in creating custom AI agents and AI agent tools that are tailored to unique business needs. That's exactly it. Okay, and you can see that it gives a source here, and you can do things with the source as you would like. Given that it's the way that OpenAI has done this, and it's not like, for instance, a source from the web, I've been removing that just because. But I want to also say that there's other messages in here, and you can get, for instance, all of that. If you were to, for instance, print all messages, you would see everything that's happened. Yeah, I mean, versus just like the content and then the text value. For instance, if I were to be using Code Interpreter and ask this assistant to, I would give it a file like a CSV file or something and ask it to create a bar chart, right? Well, if I instructed it and said you have access to things like matplotlib, numpy, whatever, it would then create what is an image, which then in response, using this in particular, we would not see that image response because it is not a text response. It is an image response, and we would need to essentially code for that. So some really cool things can happen there. But again, basic retrieval of your content, that is now totally doable and very easy to do with literally a couple clicks of a button or a couple lines of code with OpenAI's Assistant's API. So I hope this helps. If you have any questions, please let me know. The link will be down in the description for this to my GitHub repo of just this. And yeah, I will hopefully talk with you guys soon and see you in the official OpenAI Discord. Have a good one.